Welcome to the first edition of the People's International Chat Show in 2021. Today, Wednesday, the 2nd of January. As always, or nearly always, I'm your host, Colin McPherson from Germans for Scottish Independence, Dijkstra from Netherlands for Independence.
You're breaking up, mate. All right, sorry for the technical difficulties Colin seems to be having. Colin McPherson,
Yeah,
was that
my
Colin?
computer's playing up again.
Yeah.
I said, Happy New Year, Raymond. How you doing? Good to have you on again.
Yeah, great to be on, mate, again.
Welcome aboard again, Nancy McIver, another of our regular panelists. How you doing, Nancy?
I'm good, Colin. Thanks for having me and Happy New Year to you all.
Yep, thank you, you too. And another guest from Forward as One, we welcome back to Mr. Martin Keatings. How are you, Martin?
Same rubbish, different day. How are yourself?
All we can do, just keep plugging on in there. So we're going to start basically talking about what we've all been talking about, I think, for the last week or so, the new lockdown measures that we're all under due to COVID. Obviously, it's going to be difficult. I think just about everywhere it's for at least another month. It was extended in Germany yesterday. Obviously, there's the announcements at the start of the week in Scotland. Raymond, what are the lockdown measures like in the Netherlands?
Basically, the current lockdown, as it is, runs till the 19th. But it's already seeming out from sources within the government that will be extended to at least the end of the month. It hasn't been said officially yet, of course, but they are thinking that is what will happen. What we did have is that today the Netherlands, as the final country in Europe, started vaccinating. So that has started today. Yeah, that's it. And for the rest of you just have to wait like everybody else.
And what's the situation with compliance with the regulations like? Because I know certainly you're seeing in Germany more and more folk are just getting sick to the back teeth and just saying, "Oh, we're just not going to stick to the regulations anymore." Do you have the same problem in the Netherlands?
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't say more that we see it more. Like a lot of people are sick of measures, of course, yes, as am I as well. But luckily, most do see that it is necessary. And Colin just has gone, guys. So I probably will be back very soon. But as Colin asked, our people are reacting to the measures. Yeah, it is a shitty place to be in, but luckily most people here adhere to the measures. There's only one thing that is probably gonna happen is that a lot of people that own a restaurant or hairdresser, hair salon, or businesses that have been affected greatly through this pandemic, they had to close shop twice now, and they've been closed now for about a month again. And if the measures get extended to the end of to the end of the month, a lot of them have said, no matter what, we are going to open on the 20th. So, and what will happen then, I don't know. Martin, what are your views on what has happened with the measures?
Well, we should never have got in here. We should never have got to this point.
No.
We live in an island, for crying out loud. At this end, we live on an island. There's no excuse for it. All that would have been required is simple controls at the border, airports, ports, things like that. random testing from the start.
Yeah.
You know, test them as they come in, test them as they go out. And two things obviously would have happened. One, we could have dropped the level of infections down to such a low level that we could have seen scenes like we saw in New Zealand where they were out partying at New Year. But my concern is less about that side of things and more about what's happened more recently is the fact that a mutant strain has now popped its ugly head up in the UK and it's now been spread to other parts of the world simply because the UK government didn't bother testing. You know, they preach about, oh, we're so great at international cooperation. Well, look what you've just done. You've just infected.
Brexit, one word, Brexit,
Yeah,
international cooperation.
you've just infected all of these countries with a brand new mutant strain of COVID-19. Why? Because you couldn't be asked to test people at the border before they left on a flight.
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's such a waste and such a the loss of life. It just didn't need to happen, and now people are going to die. Well, that and the stupid decisions that were taken over Christmas, all because the Tories didn't want a dent in the poll numbers, because you know when the press marked them as the ones that cancelled Christmas. Now we've got, well, what was the figures today? 62,000 people have tested positive. There's over 3,000 people admitted to hospital in the last 24 hours. There's something like 2,500 people on ventilators. So,
Yeah.
idiot, a lot of them.
Well, I totally agree. Like, and right over here, I do appreciate the way they're handling it now, but like every government, they started way too slow when it first started in China. But you would think they would learn about their mistakes. Then again, does the Tory party ever learn from its mistakes, whatever they might be?
It wouldn't be so bad if they were mistakes, but in my view, they're not. What it is
Policy.
it's a policy. They're playing to the right wing ERG nut jobs and big business.
Yeah.
And the overriding thing is we'll get as many businesses open as possible and screw the consequences. But the problem is what they're actually doing is working against business by not controlling the rate. If they were to control the rate in the first instance, then you wouldn't have multiple shutdowns of all these businesses because there would be no COVID-19. But because they wanted to open up early and they wanted to play to their rich pals and their Tory donors, now we're in a situation where there's multiple lockdowns. And it's all right for the 1% that are making an absolute mint with their crooked PPE contracts. But for Joe Blogs, folks like my dad, for instance, that have lost their jobs during this pandemic, it's devastating. It destroys lives.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely. No, definitely. You're absolutely right about that. Guys, I just got word from everybody watching. I got word from Colin that his computer is completely acting up. He's trying to fix it, so he might be back a little bit later on. Nancy, sorry?
Did he try shutting it down and starting it back up again?
It might be that, mate. Nancy, what's your take on this?
I'm with Martin 110% on everything he said. They knew about this new variant as far back as September, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was September, yeah.
Yeah, I think they should have been right on it then and locked it down heavy. And as Martin says, we could possibly have been celebrating Christmas and New Year. And again, they just haven't bothered and it's about, everything's about money. So they're totally wrong. Totally wrong. Okay, locking down now, but why wait until the figures hit a stupid amount to lock down? It should have been done right away when they knew about the new variant, and they knew then how fast that was going to spread. They did nothing.
Like Martin said, Nancy, it's basically a policy, because when the first spike hit, they didn't do anything. They didn't do shit either.
No.
So it's a it's probably a policy or just inept of acting on things, or a combination of both. I mean, it's just ridiculous the way, and almost every government reacted too slow, in my book.
Yeah.
Almost every government acted too slow. but it's the way they then move forward and trying to fix the problem. And that, like we said before the show, what if we look at the UK, what country um, basically did any form of lockdown first? It was Scotland. What country did the complete lockdown first? It was Scotland. And now Boris Johnson had the gall to say something about if it was up to Nicola, no vaccines would be there. I
Yeah.
mean, he is constantly copying Nicola and trying to take uh, um, credit for it.
Yeah.
That's basically constantly what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You're freezing up,
Well, I
mate.
mean, that's we wouldn't have had the vaccine, which is absolute tripe. But if it hadn't been for Brexit, what we would have had was the cross purchasing power with the European Union for the
Exactly,
vaccine, who put
exactly.
369 million into the Oxford vaccine.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have had, if we'd been independent, we wouldn't have had Westminster telling PPE suppliers not to supply Scotland. We wouldn't have had delays with regards to passing legislation for lockdown in Scotland because we're having to wait for that extra level of bureaucracy with laws to be passed at Westminster before we're able to do it. We wouldn't have had issues with especially with building packages for financial support for businesses and for people that are on furlough and all that sort of stuff. Because if we had been independent, we had complete control over our finances. So we wouldn't have had to wait for Westminster to do a half-assed job of that. So the idea that that Scotland wouldn't have had a vaccine is just absolute tripe.
yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is that everything would have progressed at the same level because we would have been part of the European Union. In fact, we probably would have had it before Westminster because, well, they're so inept that they wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have been able to actually do anything themselves because, like you say, everything they're doing is a copy, of what's happening here in Scotland. The tier level as well. Oh, we only need 3 tiers, and then suddenly, oh, we need 4 tiers. Oh no, now we need 5 tiers. Oh, wait a minute, that looks identical to the system we've been using in Scotland for the last 4 weeks. it's just that it would be funny if it wasn't so bloody serious, because every one of these small mistakes is. If you have a tiny mistake that maybe has, say, 2 people get infected as a result of it, that's not 2 people infected. That's 2 people on day 1.
Yeah.
And then the next day 2, it's 4. And then it's 8. And then it's 16. And then it's, and before you know it, you've got thousands right the way through the country. And people are not just, people that are in the shielding category then start dying by their thousands.
Yeah, but again, Martin, like you said before, are they mistakes, really?
I hate to say that. I hate to say it because it goes to a very dark place in the mindset when you think. But with the Tories, I wouldn't put it past them that allowing this to run rampant is a way of reducing the pension bill. I know that sounds really horrid to say that, but 20, 30,000, 50,000 pensioners die. Well, that's 50,000 pensioners that are no claiming a pension.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I would not put it past them. I mean, we're talking about the party, well, your Pretty Patels and things like that want to flip in, stick immigrants on islands and deport anybody they can and slash benefits for flipping some of the most vulnerable in our society. Or the big one, over half the people that are on, over half carers in the UK didn't even get the £20 up rating in their benefits because they're on legacy benefits, which is just a trick to try and get them to apply for universal credit. So it's not a managed transfer. So at the end of COVID, they end up losing money on their benefits. So, they don't get the income protection. So I wouldn't put it past them. I really wouldn't.
No, definitely not. One thing that has surprised me, basically, I've always said that I wouldn't pass it past Boris to leave after Brexit hits. Brexit kicks in. He left after the Brexit referendum. He was basically then applying for the PM job, but stepped out, and basically they put Theresa May in place. So it would be the third time that I thought, well, it might be get Brexit done and then leave. It's now the sixth, and he's still there. So that's a bit of a surprise for me. But who am I? Nancy,
Yes.
your view on what Martin said.
I can't disagree with Martin, and I'm a pensioner. You know, I get my state pension that I've worked all my life for. But I can't disagree with anything he said, because to me, all along, that's how it's looked. You know, cutting back on where they have to pay money out. So why not let it run rampant a bit, so in order for them to save money?
I mean, they do it in every other way as well. I mean, cutting benefits as
Yeah,
a general practice. I mean, that's what happens all over the
yeah,
place. Not even with
but
pension,
it's
just with pensioners.
it's the fact that we have paid into that pension all our lives, Raymond.
Exactly.
You know, through our national insurance. So we're damn well entitled to get that, even although it is the worst pension in the world. We're damn well entitled to get it. We've paid into it. You know, I left school at 15 and I worked right through and retired at 66. I'm entitled to that. I've earned
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think if I can remember correctly, what Pat said, it's a state pension. So even if Scotland would, like one of the things that they said, threaten people with pensioners with, if they voted to leave the UK,
Mm-hmm,
is that they would lose their pension.
mm-hmm.
And that what Pat said is that that's in that even in that situation, it's not the case. It's a state pension. They
That's
would
right.
also be always be eligible to receive that upon when they should receive it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
However,
is that true,
that,
Martin? Is that true, by the way?
Well, yeah, that was actually announced
You're freezing up.
by, if I remember correctly, it was the Working Pensions Secretary. He was in front of a Westminster committee, and so was the Bank of England. And in simple terms, it was a case of they've paid into it all their life, therefore they qualify for it. So applying pensions to people in an independent Scotland, it would simply be the same mechanism that they currently use to pay pensions to expats that live abroad. So how the exact mechanism would work is not entirely sure, but what is believed to be for cost-cutting measures would be that we would set up Social Security Scotland. Those that had retired before independence would be 100% pension from Westminster, and that would be that those funds would be paid to Social Security Scotland, and they would then disperse it. Those that overlapped, so they paid into both the UK pension and an independent Scottish pension. Those funds would all be paid to Social Security Scotland from both the UK and Scottish governments, amalgamated and then paid out, so it just looks like one payment, so the person would never know. And those that are not yet started working yet, well, their contributions, it would be a case of theirs would be purely the Scottish pension, but everything would be done seamlessly in the background, and it would be Social Security Scotland that would pay it, so the person at the other end would never notice. But I mean, even from a standpoint of the amount that's paid, one of the plans in an independent Scotland is obviously to uprate the pension to the average for the European Union. So that would be roughly, in today's money, about £1,300 a month, which, if I remember correctly, the state pension at the moment is what, 700 and what, just or thereabouts. So you're talking about a £600 increase on the current level. I think it's the third worst pension in Europe. So to be perfectly honest with you, it's not worth defending. To be perfectly honest with you, but yeah, I mean the plan is definitely 100% signed and sealed point that if you've paid into a UK pension through your national insurance, you are entitled to it. And of course, if the UK was to turn around and say, nah, we're not paying that, then what would happen is in the negotiations to leave the UK, we would just turn around and say, right, I'll stuff you. You're not getting X, Y, Z. You know, all we would do is deduct the amount that they refuse to pay in pensions from the amount that we might possibly put towards paying off part of the UK national debt. So, you know, they really have no leverage here to try and threaten us with that. So, you know, all we would do is deduct what we didn't get from the amount that we would have paid towards the national debt and say, screw you. So
Yeah.
they have no leverage.
Welcome back, Colin.
Yeah, hi. It took me 15 minutes to reboot the computer. Would you believe?
Jeez. Well,
I do think, although you know how when you log on, you get this background picture first of all from Microsoft when you're onto Windows. The background picture I just got was Westminster, so it might well be that MI5 had something to do with it tonight.
And now you see why every morning on Twitter it's Good Morning Scotland, Good Morning World, Good Morning GCHQ.
I've been following you. Thanks for holding the fort, Raymond.
No problem, mate. No problem.
I've been following the discussion while I was off, and again, this idea of pensions, as Martin quite truthfully put out. I mean, the UK pension you get wherever. Think about how many UK pensioners have retired, for example, to Spain or elsewhere, to France, and they still get their pensions. Within the EU, they actually got an increase in line with the increase in the UK. Whether that will still be the case outside of the EU, because in other countries, if you retired, for example, to Australia, your pension was frozen. So that'll be something we will need to see. But the lie that we were told in 2014, you'll no get your old age pension, unfortunately, a complicit media backed them up, and enough folk believed it. That's all it is. But again, as Kevin Campervan Rolink says, Scotland has awoken, and we are. The whole population, I'm not just talking about those of us sitting in a panel discussing nitty-gritty of politics. As a nation, we're far more into politics and far more aware of things than we would have been back in 2014. I think that is an important thing for us to bear in mind. And I think that is why they are so scared right now. I really do.
Definitely.
Raymond, do you want to take some of the viewers' comments? Do you want me to go through them?
No, yeah, we'll do it. First of all, let me just welcome everybody. It's quite a bit. Ellie, Kevin, Campervan Rolling, and Albie Luck, if I pronounce that correctly. Gwen Sinclair. Gwen Sinclair saying, okay, so Trump supporters have taken over Capitol building, entrance in protest about, I presume, Georgia. Well, you presume correctly, Gwen. Sver Coxvold, Winnie Greer, Ruth Hanratty, Maureen Smith, Douglas Mitchell, Sandra Burke, Dory Fraser, Malcolm Campbell, Jim McIntyre. There's a lot of Happy New Year, so right back at you guys. There are not really big comments on what we've discussed so far. Ted Edward James McDowell. Somebody's saying something about you, Colin. Colin, you need a solid state drive to speed up your reboots.
I'm just thinking, I mean, this I've had this problem now for a couple of weeks. I mean, the laptop is about 5 or 6 years old, so it's a sort of time where you're starting to think you're getting old technology and maybe needing a new. And I'm thinking this is absolutely perfect timing, right in the middle of a lockdown. You can't even go to the shop and buy a new computer. So we'll keep up with the old one for now, and hopefully I won't be freezing every week for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Who knows? Just on the Trump thing, CNN are apparently calling it an attempted coup, which I think is probably going a bit far. But again, I mean, this is a story that isn't going to end within the next half hour. So any of you tempted to watch it on the CNN or watch it on the telly, stick with us for the next half hour. You can watch it afterwards. Nothing will be happening in the next half hour. I can guarantee that.
I'm almost 100% sure that's exactly what Donald Trump's doing. He's deliberately trying to antagonize people and get his supporters to go berserk so he can then declare martial law, you know, because the man's got a brain that's basically a barrel full of cats. You know?
He doesn't have a brain.
Mental.
He doesn't have a brain.
Well, see, he would need one just to you know.
He might have one cell just to keep moving, but
yeah, well, you need to have at least one brain cell in order to operate the spray tan machine. So.
Definitely.
One question, not to do with Trump, come up for Mandy Garden. Is it true that the Crown gets unclaimed pension if the claimant passes away? I don't think so. First I've heard of it, and I'm not quite sure how it would work because you've got the pension fund under Social Security contributions, and I don't think there'd be an extra payments to the Crown if somebody died. I think what you get is the estate.
That's right. Yeah.
If you don't leave a will and you have no inheritance, then your estate goes to the Crown.
It goes specifically to Prince Charles.
Okay.
His, I can never remember. He's the Duke of, or what? I can never remember what. Yeah, because to be perfectly honest with you, the royals are just like meh.
In England, he's the Duke of Cornwall.
Whatever. The Duke is somewhere. You know, Duke, Lord, Master, Commander, whatever he wants to call himself.
Duke of Poole.
You know. But yeah, apparently it goes to part of the estate that he oversees. Because there was, if I remember correctly, there was actually a stink about it about 2 years ago when it came out that that's actually what happens with certain types of inheritance that have gone unclaimed. And I remember them saying that they were going to divest it and invest it into some sort of, you know, kitty for some sort of thing, you know, National Society for the Prevention of Painting Cats or something like that, you know.
Well, maybe, of course, he needs a wee bit of money if he finally gets fined for having come up to Scotland when he had COVID.
Yeah. I want to pay the assassin to take out Mammy so he can finally get the crown.
Yeah, probably. Kevin Campervan Rowling said, it goes into the Crown and stays in for 30 years to give time for it to be claimed. If no one claims it, within that time, the Crown takes it. That's what he says.
Right. That's again talking about the estate and not the pension.
Yeah.
So I hope we've been able to clarify that. Just a quick thing to the story and what's happening in Washington right now. Winnie Greer, thanks Winnie. It's apparently a Republican congressman who is in the building calling it a coup, not CNN. Thank you, I stand corrected. I just saw a tweet came up, but that's good. Final word on Donald Trump, I think we'll leave to Jim McIntyre. If brains were dynamite, Donald don't have enough to blow his nose.
That's true.
Could not agree more.
The man's got all the moral fibre of the box that Shreddies comes in. Yeah. The political consistency of wet pasta and all the charisma of a burning orphanage.
Okay, well let's try and ignore Donald Trump for a wee bit because apart from a few jokes, I mean this always he can be quite fun on Twitter, just posting when his election claims are flagged up by Twitter, and you just post. Twitter reckons you're talking pish again. It can be fun.
Thing is, though, wouldn't it be so bad? But if you look at it, it's every single tweet he sends.
Yeah, that's it.
Was it this claim of election fraud is disputed?
Let's turn our minds and discussion to something a bit more close to home, Scotland and independence. Which, at the end of the day, is why we all sit here every Wednesday night talking amongst each other, talking to you guys, because we all want to see an independent Scotland. And we all want to see an independent Scotland sooner rather than later.
Definitely.
Now, of course, Boris Johnson was interviewed on Andrew Marr at the weekend on Sunday. Half an hour. Yeah, half an hour I'll never get back in my life. Pure waffle. And one thing he did say, he was actually challenged about this once in a generation claim, which he was actually, to be fair, this wasn't coming from Andrew Marr. Andrew Marr was talking about the potential of an independence majority at the next election, currently planned for the 6th of May next year. And it was Boris Johnson said once in a generation. A referendum isn't a jolly thing, apparently. He was then said, he thinks once in a generation should be the timing. Andrew Marr suggested, what timing would you suggest that means, Prime Minister? Well, going to the EU referenda from 75 to 2016. So basically, Boris Johnson says, Scotland, you're going to hear another referendum in 2055. Now, we're not going to get into this once in a generation argument because we know that the comments weren't any legally binding comments at the time. There were comments made, I think it might even have been on the white paper at the time, to underline the importance of the event. Yep. But it was not a legally binding agreement on the people of Scotland that there would never be another independence referendum within a generation. And let me put it to you one more final point. Even if back in 2014, Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon had said to, who was at the time, you lose track of all these Tory prime ministers, David Cameron.
Yeah.
If they'd said to David Cameron, okay, and if we lose, we'll have a wheesht for a generation. It's the people of Scotland that are sovereign. So even if Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon had made a more binding declaration in this once in a generation, things move on in politics, things move on in life, and it's in a democracy, it is the will of the people that has to be respected.
Definitely.
Well, I'll start with you, Martin. 2055, I don't know, you're a bit younger than I am, so you might still be around to see it.
I'll be up.
We'll see. I might get Jill Dando the morn. Right. But yeah, the once in I've actually been switching this once in a generation completely round, because that's not the quote. The original quote was obviously, as we all know, once in a generation opportunity. And if you actually Google the word opportunity and look it up in the dictionary, it actually specifically states that the word opportunity means a time or set of circumstances that make something possible. Right? So that means that the word opportunity in this case came after once in a generation. So it was actually a qualifying word. The time and the circumstances have changed, ergo, we get another crack. So once in a generation opportunity was actually a freaking warning to Westminster.
Ooh.
Do good by us, or that'll change the circumstances and the time, and we get to go again. So the word, that's the reason the word opportunity is always left off when they actually say that quote, because the word opportunity literally means a time and a set of circumstances that allow something to be possible. If the time and the circumstances change, then it becomes possible again. So it's actually a qualifying word. So it was a warning not to screw with us or we'd go again, not actually a commitment to it only being once in a generation. So get it up, you Boris.
Go, Martin.
Nancy, you said 2055, what was it, 104?
104. I'll not be able to march, Colin.
No, that'll be terrible. And what, I'm sure, well, I don't know, we're all a bit odd when, we'll find somebody, some of the young ones will push you in a wheelchair.
Somebody will have to give me a piggyback.
We'll dip you in formaldehyde and sort of prop you up.
But I mean, seriously, this we're seeing this more and more because the Tories and the Unionists, I mean, it's not just the Tories, it's not just the Tories, the blue ones, the red ones, the yellow ones, but they're getting noticeably worried. They're the ones that have been banging on about independence since 2014. And it was just yesterday or 2 days ago, Douglas Ross tweeting again about how, oh no, but as he always does, I mean, it's the same old every time. Or rather than dealing with the pandemic, Nicola Sturgeon is talking about independence when she's not the one talking about independence. Much to the chagrin of many independent supporters, I think she should be talking more about independence.
Mhm.
What's your impression of this whole idea of timing and why people are allowed to get away with this once in a generation misquote so often?
You speaking to me, Colin?
Aye, that's what I said, Nancy, at the start.
Oh, they're getting away with it because nobody's picking them up on it. You know, and that once in a generation opportunity. Nice one, Martin. We need to get this guy voted in. Aye, this once in a generation opportunity, they're deliberately missing out. Because I had never heard of that before. I was aware that they were always banging on about it, but nobody's questioning it. You know, even the people who are interviewing, whether it be an SNP or whoever, are talking about, but the SNP said it was a once in a generation thing. What is a once in a generation thing? Well, we Google that, Martin, and get the definition of that. But aye, they're getting away with it, and that's the whole reason they keep banging on about it, because nobody is questioning it.
Yeah, and including, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the time the SNP politicians, they won't challenge it. They will also be using the change of circumstances and avoiding the topic. What I would really like to see is somebody to come down there, be it at Westminster, be it at Holyrood, be it in Andromar or in the Sunday Politics or wherever, or all four and many more besides, and say, whatever was said at the time, no politician has the right to deny democracy to the people of Scotland. Ryman, do you wanted to come in?
Yeah, a bit of a funny comment from Malcolm Campbell. I bet you they still roll out Brown in 2055.
Well, they've already rolled him out, haven't they? He was on the TV the other week. He's looking he was looking like a bit dishevelled, you know. And there's still a guy working on with the flipping spray paint at the back, but he's quite clearly back out again, you know. A bit of WD-40 under the arms just to make sure he's not squeaking.
Raymond,
Yeah.
what's your thinking about this? I mean, what's the situation in the Netherlands about having a referendum? Is there any precedent in your country?
Basically, every referendum that's held is basically just an advisory referendum. Like for instance, the last one we had was when they wanted to bring in the Ukraine as a full member of the EU, and that they want to give they promise some stuff to the government of the Ukraine. It got voted down completely by the Dutch, but again, they just tweaked it a little bit and then they went on and brought them in. Anyway, great one, Martin.
Martin's going to spot the difference. Spot the difference picture for today.
Hey, that's Boris on the right, right?
This one was obviously Boris, and this one's his body double.
Yep. On the generation point, Mandy Artist Fund, a generation of politics is 7 years. Certainly in Northern Ireland it is. That is in the Good Friday Agreement. But again, it doesn't matter how long a generation is. If the people of Scotland decided they wanted 3 referendums in 3 consecutive days, then it is up to the elected politicians to enable the will of the people of Scotland to be heard and to be enacted.
Definitely.
And I think that is certainly something that we're seeing a lot now. I think we're letting ourselves get waylaid too much. And of course, the whole reason that this once in a generation thing is being bandied about is because currently the so-called gold standard would involve a Section 30 order, which would involve the UK government or the UK Prime Minister of the time to say, yes, Scotland, you can. Very generous, Mr. Johnson. No, Scotland, you can't. Get it up you, Mr. Johnson. And I'm sure everyone is aware that Martin is involved in hopefully achieving something which will enable the whole of Scotland in unison to say, get it up you, Mr. Johnson. What's the current story on the case? I think you've got the hearing in a couple of weeks now, Martin.
Aye, 21st and 22nd of this month. So, but it's more a case where if it's not a case that we're going in to ask, can Scotland have a referendum without permission of Westminster? What we've done is we've put an opinion in and we've said Scotland can have a referendum without permission of Westminster. Prove us wrong. So, one of the benefits that seems to have happened is a case of that the UK government haven't bothered advancing any argument whatsoever against our argument that Scotland already has the power to legislate for a referendum itself without the permission of Westminster. Instead, they focused entirely on technicalities to try and get the case kicked. That's it. They've not actually advanced anything against what we're arguing, that we already have the power to legislate for that referendum. So we get over the technical challenges, the court will really have no choice but to rule in our favour, because there's been nothing advanced against it. So we've got one hearing between now and then, which is about production of documents. And it's interesting to note that the Lord Advocate is no longer denying that a bill exists for a referendum. So we're taking that as a clear indication that there is now a bill for a referendum franchise sitting somewhere at Holyrood. And we're obviously, in order for us to for the case to be heard properly, the court needs to see what that bill is. So that hearing will be happening within the next couple of weeks. It'll only be about 45 minutes to an hour. And it's more procedural than anything else, but we're on direct course now for the full substantive hearing on the 21st and the 22nd of this month. So yeah, it's all systems go. We've got a couple of developments that will probably become public knowledge in the next week. I can't say anything, and I'm out desperate to say it, but. So, I'm obviously not allowed to say anything at this point, but there are some interesting developments happening right at this very moment, which should bring a smile to quite a lot of people's face in the next sort of week. So watch out for the updates is all I'll say.
I'm sure you'll keep us informed as always.
Yeah.
Raymond.
Yeah.
How much are you following this case from the Netherlands?
Well, through the Fortis One page, of course. I'm an admin on there as well. Of course, it doesn't get any time of day here in the Netherlands, so it's just from the Facebook page that I'm following it.
Yeah, and just say, for example, the Netherlands was part of Germany in some kind of union, and the Netherlands had to ask permission for Angela Merkel to dissolve that union or to even vote on dissolving that union. How would you feel?
Like that. I mean, I wouldn't accept it one little bit. Not for one little bit. We're a separate country. That's the thing that That's the only thing that I have with the EU at the moment is that they wanted more power in Brussels, and to the point that I felt like we were going to lose our separate identity. Um, Now that got voted down as well in a referendum. I don't see it happening as such, so I'm fine with that. But I would be, to put it mildly, opposed to it. Politically correctly, I am opposed to that. I would be opposed to that. I would fight it in every way feasible.
Nancy, again, man, I'm pretty sure you don't feel you need to ask permission from Mr. Johnson. Do you think it's sad that we need an independence activist to go to court? Do you think it's sad that you have to go to court at all? Or do you think it's a good thing that this is us putting the ground lines out so that the Tories have nowhere else to run?
I find it sad as well. But I think what Martin's doing is absolutely fantastic. I'm one of the 10,000, and I'll continue to fight it as long as he needs. And I'm sure the other 10,000 people think the same thing. We'll be right behind him every step of the way. I think it's a wonderful thing. I was listening to, I don't know if you listened to 12 Heeds last night, Dave Llewellyn was talking about the case. And he said, if this goes the way we hope it goes, this and Martin Keatings is going to go down in history. This is going to be massive for Scotland. And I think we need that going forward. I think we need to have that in writing, if you like, for going forward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm with Martin all the way.
I mean, I know that all of us in the panel certainly are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But Martin, I do believe you need more folk to help you out. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, the fundraiser's reopened again. The first, and it's actually unfortunately the Scottish Government that's to blame for this, because we all know that they came in, which they didn't need to take that invitation to come into the case, but they came in and messed around and then dropped out. So they did expend quite a bit of resources at the start, just arguing stupid stuff. It was completely inappropriate the way it was done. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Scottish Government deserves a good stiff smack around the back of the head for that. But ultimately, I don't need to preach about that, because their own members, when everything comes out, eventually will chastise them for that, because that's the way it should be. Their own members should hold them to account. But yeah, we do have when. It's not so much an immediate concern at the moment. So we've left the fundraiser open. It'll continue to renew every month. It'll allow people to, gradually donate to it. With the hearing coming up, it would be nice to refill, our fighting fund, just to make sure we're 100% down the line. But it's really stemmed from a warning from council. Listen, it could cost an additional X amount of money, and although it's a concern at this stage, and it's not like level 5 lockdown panic. It's a case of we're sort of mid-range at the moment. So I listen to their concerns, which is exactly what you employ them for, to tell you these sort of things. So and reopened the existing fundraiser. So it's there for people just to, add a bit in. We've had an additional 20,000 or odd. I'm not sure where it's at before I came onto this stream, but I know yesterday it was at an additional 20,000 from what it was at when we closed the fundraiser the last time round. So, and it's just ticking along. So anybody out there that can just share it, you don't have to add a massive amount, just share it, £5, £10, whatever you can spare. That would be great. And we'll continue on. From the start of this, though, as I said right at the start, I didn't want to go, oh, it needs to be this amount of money and put a massive, huge fundraiser. I said I would only ask in stages as and when it was required. We're now at that stage where, I have to say it again. But if there's one thing that this is proving, it's exactly how expensive it is to be able to get access to justice in this country. It's obscene. It's absolutely obscene. And it's not just a case of it's so expensive to get it. It's the fact that parties within a case can deliberately do things which are an abuse of the court process just to expend your funds and your resources. If the UK government had their way, the hearing wouldn't be happening on the 21st and the 22nd over a 2-day period. What they wanted to do was chop what's called their pleas in law. This is at the end of their responses. There's the pleas in law, which are effectively the rulings that they want the judge to give. And in our case, there's 3 of them. In their case, there's 7 or 10 or whatever. They wanted to split each one up and have little hearings about every single one, each one requiring paperwork to be done, responses to be done, arguments to be written, arguments to be fought, a 45-minute hearing, etc., etc. And then if we got over all those hurdles, then have the substantive argument at the end of it. We argued, no, what's the point in that? We'll just argue everything together for the benefit of the court. We'll have it over a 2-day hearing, sorted.
Right.
And Lady Carmichael found in our favour. So that's why we now have, a 2-day hearing rather than 4 1-day hearings and then a 2-day hearing if we manage to get over that hurdle. So all it was an exercise in abusing the court system for the purposes of trying to expend funds, expend resources, waste time and delay, because really the UK government has no argument against their position.
Okay. So. As to the crowdfunder, if any of our viewers, Ellie, you might be able to do this quickly, share the link to the crowdfunder into the comments, and then after the show, we'll pin it. If nobody can do so, then it's not a problem. We'll put the crowdfunder link into the comments of the show and pin it so that you can come out, if you watch back, or if you're watching afterwards, not live, that you'll be able to find the crowdfunder. And if you're able to, please help out. This is an important case. Just a few more shout outs to the audience. Graham Dallas has dropped in. Hi, Graham. Also, hello to Sandra, our Painted Rainbow, I've heard is watching. Faye Kennedy says, I think it's a great thing that we're doing the court case, or that Martin's doing the court case. Shows it will not just sit back and take any more rubbish. Ruth Hannerty, I don't find it sad. The people in Scotland are sovereigns and can go that way if they want. The SNP are in government and need to serve the entire country as they see fit and deal with the independence questions they see fit. I'll just leave that there. Couple of folk seem to be missing your emails, Martin. My advice, check your spam ordner. I notice that the mails I get, they do sometimes land on my spam ordner.
Yeah.
Depending on your email provider, you might be able to mark them as non-spam so you get them directly anyway. If not, what you can always do if you're on Twitter, follow Martin on Twitter, because he will always keep you up to date on Twitter. I think Twitter is where you tend to go to first. Is that right, Martin?
Yeah, it's where I go. It's where I go to vent. Yeah.
Martin, some guy, I don't know if you know him, but some guy named Jim Keatings posted the link. So I already pinned it. So,
what's that arsehole wanting? Am I gonna have to get that restraining order?
Just kidding, Jim.
Thanks for that, Jim. Yeah, so we've actually managed to cover just about an hour already. Would you believe it, especially since I was out for most of the first half of it. So we're going to have to come around to our final thoughts for the evening. Going to start with you, Nancy, because I think you've got a new project that you're involved with that you would like to tell people about.
Yeah, myself and another indie supporter, Anne Obiluk, we've started the Indie2 Cafe. Now, you know, we discussed it briefly. So what we're aiming at doing is reaching out to people if they're struggling through lockdown, nobody to speak to, at a bit of a loose end. You know, we're going to have a lot of chats about that. We'll share recipes and cleaning ideas. And today was our second day. We went live at 2 o'clock. Yesterday we were a bit rusty, but we had a good laugh. Today we were a bit better, but you know, we got loads of people interacting, and it was really good fun. So, you know, we're just going to take it a day at a time. We'll be live every day at 2 o'clock. Sometimes myself or Anne, or we're encouraging other users to jump on and do a live and just start chatting, because as you know, when somebody does a live, you go in and have a look, you know, and you end up joining in and commenting and having a bit of a laugh. And that's what we're all about. So it's Indie2 Cafe. At the moment, we'll be going live every day at 2 o'clock, just for a chat. Anne also does a live on a Sunday with her husband David. They do the curry house, and they're cooking every Sunday, and it's a wonderful programme. You should have a wee look in, get a lot of good ideas, a lot of good food as well. So yeah, come along to the Indie2 Cafe and hope to see you there.
Sounds good.
Right, I'm just thinking, if you're sharing recipes, 2 o'clock is 3 o'clock German time. That's usually when I take my lunch break. So if you need anybody to try any of the recipes, you can get the stuff delivered, you know, by to my door by that stage. I'm quite happy to help you out.
Well, you know, no problem at all. Yeah, I think, did I not send you an invitation?
You sent us an invitation, but you didn't send us any of the food.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, Anne and her husband do a brilliant programme on a Sunday, and they're going to be making pakora this week. You know, they do a lot of curries, all different types of curries, and Colin, it looks good. Looks really good. Yeah.
Well, folk, we started the show talking about lockdown being extended for, well, at least a few weeks for the foreseeable future. So if you're at a loose end, as we've been saying on this show for months now, you know there are places you can go to for a blether to take your mind off things, and just, if you need a bit of support, get the support. If you can provide the support, provide the support. Because at the end of the day, we've all got to stick together. And Nancy's Indie Cafe and what was it you said, the Curry House, both of them, more options. Because at the end of the day, when you are feeling a wee bit down, and maybe you'd say, I need the blether, there's not necessarily something going on at the time. But if you know, Nancy's going live in a couple of hours, that'll give you a wee bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, a wee bit something to look forward to, where you can say, all right, I'll get through the next couple of hours and I've got something to look forward to. So this is great. Folk coming together, folk helping each other out. So as I say, if you want to join in that, go for it. Martin, your final comments for tonight, please.
Never eat yellow snow. Be careful that the light at the end of the tunnel isn't the train coming the opposite direction. You know, it takes 40 muscles to frown and only 4 to lean out and slap somebody. Yeah. I always say, final thought I always say is that I understand that everybody is going through hell at the moment, whether it be the COVID or whether it be the situation we find ourselves in constitutionally. And I understand that we're in for some dark days, you know, in the coming months. It's inevitable, but if we all stick together and we all keep pushing forward a bit at a time, we'll come out of it, and I have no doubt that by the end of it, Scotland will take its place amongst the other nations of this planet as an equal. And our darkest days will be followed by our best years. So I would just say to everybody, you know, stick at it. I know that sometimes it can feel a bit hopeless is probably the right word, but no government has ever been able to stand against the force of will of people calling for their own self-determination. It just doesn't happen. So just stick with it. and inch by inch, we'll get ourselves to a place where we can finally have an independent country.
Right, exactly, yeah. Raymond.
Yeah, we can basically two things. One on May 29th, we are planning Netherlands and Scottish Independents are planning our next event for Scottish Independents in The Hague, pending, of course, if we are allowed to do it live.
Only if the pubs can stay open.
Yeah, exactly. But if we're still in this thing and we still have to, we're still not allowed to do it live, then we will go live, but online, like we did last year. So just want to announce that we will announce more info on the event in the coming weeks. One thing that I want to say to everybody basically is that we all have different views on how independence should be achieved. We can all agree that independence should be achieved, but please let this pandemic not divide us even more. And with that, I mean through stuff like being for or opposed to vaccination and more stuff like that. Please respect everybody else's views and don't call a person a sheep for believing in vaccination or even not believing in vaccination and following that. I'm just saying, keep together, stay together in the fight for independence and not let anything deter us, not let anything divide us. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, again, stay safe.
Yeah, very much so. I think that's a very important point. I mean, Raymond, I know that this has been one thing you've been talking about for many years now. These divisions within the independence movement about things that some of them are important, some of them aren't important, and again, this they just it means that folks start taking their eye off the goal. We all want independence, and it's up to us to work together to get independence.
Exactly.
And afterwards, we can all discuss. Those of you staying in Scotland will actually be able to decide what form an independent Scotland then will take. But up until then, we've all got to work together. And again, that would be one of my final words for this show. Maybe if anybody for the Electoral Commission is watching, get your finger out. And then many more will be able to work together for independence when the election comes. So we look forward to what's going to be an interesting year. As always, just about every Wednesday night we'll have a show. There'll have to be something pretty major happening that we can't do a show on a Wednesday night. So put the date in your diary if it isn't already in there. Thank you to our audience. As always, you've been great tonight. Thank you for your engagement on the comments. Thank you for watching, spending an hour of your Wednesday night with us and listen to us discuss things. Thank you, of course, as always, to the panel. Martin, thank you for coming and joining us and also for your update. That's how we wanted to get you in sooner rather than later because we're going to be busy for the next few weeks. But
just a bit.
Hopefully, in a month or so, we'll have you back on again to give us another update. Hopefully, a very positive one. So we wish you all the best for the case. Nancy, as always, thanks. Stalwart panelist, always able to come on, sometimes even at short notice. Thank you, and I'm sure you'll be on many times over the course of the next year.
Thank you,
Raymond. Same applies, stalwart panelist. Thanks for joining us on the panel tonight. Again, I'm sure you'll be on the panel many a time in the course of the next year. And of course, thanks for all the work you do in the background. Thanks for all your tech support.
No problem.
Thanks for jumping in tonight when my computer started playing Silly Whatsits, playing Boris Johnson or whatever. But anyway, folk, that's us for tonight. Have a good week. Most importantly, pay attention and abide by the regulations wherever you stay. It's hard, but we've got to stick together to get through this pandemic as well.
Definitely.
And let's get through this pandemic so that maybe, just maybe, come the spring or the summer, we can be all out on the streets marching again for Scottish independence. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.